Jay, how are you?
Hey Ron, how are you?
Uh,
You're busy.
Crazy.
The man of the next few months.
It's just been
How you go?
Hi, Jay. Hey, Ron.
howdy, howdy. Hey, Hugo, I got your note about volunteering. I just haven't found out something good for you, okay?
Okay, no, that's fine. Anything I can do to help, I've been participating on the parades since I relocated here, so
Oh, beautiful.
anything I can do to help, it will be
Well, we
great.
definitely need you marching in the Human
I'll be
Rights
marching.
Commission
We'll be
contingent, for
marching.
sure.
We'll be marching.
All right, how are we looking?
We have 6.
Oliver's on. Anybody in the waiting room, Jay? Customers, residents?
No residents.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can wait a minute or two.
Happy birthday, Edwin.
Oh, thank you. 50, y'all.
Are you still celebrating?
Everyone tells me I should celebrate for a month. So
You
okay.
should. 30 days of celebrations.
Gracias. It's good to see everyone.
It's good to
Good
see you.
afternoon.
Well, we have quorum. Maybe we should go ahead and start, huh?
Very good.
All right, you ready, Jay? We're ready to go?
Sounds good, Chair.
All right. It is October 11th, 5:32. We will get the Human Rights Commission meeting for the City of Palm Springs underway. First order of business is roll call. Jay, will you please take a
Yes, sir.
attendance?
Commissioner Loyola,
Present.
Commissioner Vignolo, he's here. Commissioner Cleary,
Here, sorry, couldn't find
Here.
my unmute.
Commissioner Robles, Commissioner Andrade, Commissioner Flood,
Present.
Commissioner Ramaran,
Present.
Commissioner Shepard,
Present.
Chair DeHart.
And present.
Well, we have quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, next up is item 5, public comment. Jay, do we have anybody wanting to make public comment today?
We do not have any public comment, and Commissioner Andrade has just joined the meeting.
Okay, excellent. We appreciate it. Next up, item 6, chair comments. That is for me. So thanks and welcome, Oliver. Commissioner Clary, this I think is your second meeting. You were on for the joint meeting. It seems like such a long time ago, but it was only a few days, a week and a half ago or so. So welcome. We appreciate you coming on board and joining our work of the Human Rights Commission. And thank you to everyone for participating in the joint meeting. It was a very important meeting for us to be able to hear City Council, but more importantly, hear the community speak on how they felt about not only the apology for Section 14, but the entire discussion on the monument. So we, the commission had a lot of work put into this, and there was voices on both sides of the issues or the issue of the moving the monument, even from the commission. And I appreciate everybody's support there and participating in that very long council meeting. And at the same time, applaud City Council for making a very bold step forward with the apology, and it is welcomed that we're making that statement. So very excited that that took place. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for September 13th of 2021. Do we have any comments on the minutes? Oh, I didn't see anybody shake. If there's no comments on the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Moved by Commissioner Lola. Yes, second. Commissioner Flood, did I see you nod your head?
Yes, I second it.
Second. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, aye, say aye. Raise your hand, nod your head. That's
Okay.
unanimous, Jay. Minutes are adopted as presented. Thanks to staff for keeping us ahead on these minutes now. We're reporting in a much more timely basis, and we appreciate that and understand the human resources shortage that we've had for a long time, but we appreciate keeping up on those. Item 8, next item on the agenda, items for discussion and action. I think I was supposed to talk about recognition under my chair comments, so I will put that here on items for discussion and action. And the recognition activity for today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's a holiday that celebrates and honors the Native American peoples and commemorates their histories and cultures. And being Native our Indigenous Peoples Day, I'd just like to reiterate that the Human Rights Commission acknowledges that the land we live and work on is the original homelands of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. The sovereign band of Agua Caliente people have stewarded this land throughout the generations and continue to steward this land for future generations. We honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous peoples that are still connected to this land. This is an important day of recognition because it really honors our Native Indigenous Americans in opposition to the celebration that has become more commonly known as Columbus Day. So it's we proudly support Indigenous Peoples Day. We don't have a formal resolution to that effect, but we do would like to let the commissioners know. I did reach out to representatives of the tribal council and extended our hand to the council, and if they wanted to present a proclamation, we offered our support in that effort, and for them just to let us know how we might be of assistance. And I'm not sure if they've moved on that on their own or not. Other reports coming out of the executive committee. We had no executive committee. I think we're all still getting a feel for how this new committee or lack of committee structure will be working. So we will continue as we move forward, figure out a timing process, because we have to post the agenda for our executive committee meetings. And they've been an important tool for us to discuss agenda items that are, for the next meeting. So I think it's important for us to continue to do that. And we just need to get ourselves into a schedule and work with Jay on timing, posting, and making those meetings available for the community to participate. So, hopefully we'll be able to get back get into a routine for those meetings. And I think the other standing committees that we used to have, we really have created liaisons for those standing committees. And we'll go through and get reports on standing committees, or liaisons, sorry, from starting off with the police department LGBT outreach report. We did meet. There's a discussion about the identifying or making an arrest in the murder of a local lesbian in town, and one of our seniors who had just retired. So we are pleased to see the police department that work so swiftly to find a person and bring charges to that person on both of those murders. Very, very happy to see that. No other real big issues came forward or items of note there. Commissioner Ramaran, would you like to give us an update as the liaison for the community calendar?
For the community calendar, thank you, Chair DeHart. As the liaison, the two big items I want to report on is that we do have the Greater Palm Springs Pride coming up in November, as well as Veterans Day Parade in November as well. So those are the two that we want to. I did report on those at the last meeting, and there's a whole list of other dates to keep in mind. But I want to, since we're creeping up onto November, I want to make sure that we have our participation in both of those parades. And we've already asked anybody here in the commission to please march with us, and this is actually very new for me, so these are the kind of things I want to make sure that we follow through with in our community engagement and participation, and that the Human Rights Commission is there in actually as strong as a full force as possible, so as well as the Veterans Day Parade that's coming up in November. But those are the two main things that I wanted to stress with the master calendar. Thank you.
Do you have everybody signed up and committed that you want to have?
I have Student Representative Lily Hanner on board, and I think, did I just hear that Commissioner Loyola is interested in marching as well? So I wanted to make sure that we're getting more folks involved and seeing how we can also see how the other sort of city government commissions who are marching and city government folks who are what it looks like. So because this is fairly new for me, so I'm not too sure how. Do we just march together as one commission or with other commissions and boards?
No. You are standing on your own as the Human Rights Commission. Okay. Typically have the banner. We have a banner. So a couple, 2-3 people hold the banner, and the rest of the commissioners and supporters can walk with us behind the banner. But it's important that we have more than 2 people. Vice Chair Shepherd raised her hand that she will be marching. So do we have commitments? Commissioner Flood is also marching. Any other commissioners able to march in the Pride Parade under Commissioner Ramaran's direction? Commissioner Shepherd, we got you. We got Flood. We got Loyola. So there's 4. And the commissioner, our vice chair has her hand up. Go ahead, Donna. We can't hear you. All right, well,
There I am. I'm back.
there we go.
I'm so sorry. Do we have a banner or any type of identification of who we are when we're doing our parade thing?
Yes, there's a banner, a nice sized banner that clearly identifies the commission. And that banner is in the possession of who? Commissioner Andrade has it. All right, so Commissioner Andrade, are you able to participate in the parade?
I'm not certain yet. I'd like to. Can you just restate the date again for me? November,
Sure, Commissioner Ramaran?
November 7th.
November, oh, okay.
And it starts at what time?
12 noon, but we have to assemble before that, of course.
Yeah,
I
I don't.
I think you meant to say 10 a.m.
Oh, 10 a.m.
I don't think I'm going to be able to be present for that, but I will definitely be available to bring the banner to wherever it needs to be.
Okay.
Commissioner Amaran, if you-
So Commissioner Ramaran, can you go ahead and coordinate with Commissioner Andrade, and then at least we can make sure it's in your hands. So, you can practice putting it together, a dress rehearsal. All right, very good. So you have everything you need on that?
That and as well as just a reminder that, again, the Veterans Day Parade is on, we have it as the 11th of November, and that's at 3:30 in downtown Palm Springs as well. So we'll need the same, get people to help us with assembling a group for that march as well.
Okay, and who do we have that can participate in that?
I'll be marching.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Commissioner Andrade, Flood, Loyola, Ramaran. And I think that's what we got right now.
Great.
So that's excellent. We appreciate that. And we can at least have a presence with 4 people and the banner. So thank you for doing that. And if plans change for anybody else, please connect with Commissioner Ramaran directly. And we would love to have your participation in both of those activities. So that's excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Our next report as the liaison to Main Street. I don't think there was anything of significance from a human rights point of view. A lot of discussion on, so I take that back. There's a lot of discussion on the homelessness and some of the impacts downtown, and a lot of good conversation with the police department and their the process and the challenges of trying to bring help to somebody, and at the end of the day, if they don't want the help, there's nothing that can be done, and that's a big challenge. So that was a discussion from the Main Street. Good update from the police department. Some concern on a young woman who is pregnant, very visibly pregnant, who is living outdoors and not wanting to have help. So I know the folks downtown and the police department are doing what they can to, make sure she continues to know that those services are available to her. Next item, Organized Neighborhoods of Palm Springs Liaison, Commissioner Vignolo.
I don't really have much to report. I'm going to attend the meeting tomorrow. Is their monthly membership meeting. But I don't, from a human rights perspective, I don't think much was much from the September meeting that would be relevant. So that's all I really have.
Okay. Anything on cultural affairs? I'm not sure we've got anything going on right now. No.
Nothing from my end on Desert Highland.
Okay, nothing from Desert Highlands. Okay, and same with Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, in line with Veterans Day coming up next month, November 11th, just want to point out, and a lot of us realize that suicide remains a very critical issue for active duty military and as well as veterans. So, but there is a hotline. If you know a veteran, a person suffering from anything that they need help, I can give you that number now or whatever. Just want to make people aware of that. If you know someone needs help, you can tell them to call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. This is 24 hours, 24/7 operation. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Youth, is any update for youth education and affairs? I don't think there was a meeting this week or this month. So we'll move on from that. We are moving quickly because we have homework that we have to address today, the matrix. So I'm moving quickly through as many of these as we can. So we asked to have the clean air ordinance that's been sitting with sustainability come back to us. And I haven't seen a copy yet. So Jay, I don't think one was attached to the agenda, was it? Did I miss it?
No, we did not have a copy.
Okay. So if we can get a copy out to the commission, let's just have all the commissioners please review it and highlight any items of note that you would like to bring forward. And we will carry this item to the next agenda with the intent that we provide additional comment to the report and then return it to sustainability with comment. I see a couple hands up. Commissioner Vignola.
Sorry, I couldn't quite
Okay.
hear you. Could you please repeat what you said?
No? Commissioner Vignola?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just wanted to ask, I guess, on the Youth Education Affairs Standing Committee. I know you said we hadn't met. So is Commissioner Shepard the chair of the committee, or how do we know when the committee is going to meet or what we should be doing? And I'm a little new to the whole committee structure, so I'm just asking for some guidance on how this is supposed to function.
I believe at our previous meeting, Vice Chair Shepard opened the door for Robles or Hannah or Vignola to step ahead in the leadership of that. Am I correct? Yeah, okay. So it was left in the hands of Vignola and Robles to step forward. And if that is going to continue as a standing committee, it does need to be agendized. It does need to be posted.
Okay.
We need a formal agenda created, and you can get with Jay on that process, okay?
Okay.
So you meaning
Thanks.
Commissioner Vignola. Since you're the one on the call, you are anointed the head of that standing committee.
Okay.
All right.
I'll try to kick the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Get it going. Okay. Thank you.
And Commissioner Ramaran, I see your hand this time.
Yeah, just quickly in regards to the clean air, the clean indoor air and health protection draft ordinance. I know that it was mentioned at the last meeting quickly, and just as a reminder, the draft that we do have now is just the current draft. There hasn't been anything given to us by sustainability with any new edits.
Oh, okay. Then can you send that? Can you send it out or to Jay, and then we make sure we have the most recent copy?
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's just it's the current with the edits that were sent. So it's just that, Jay, as
I know,
well.
but when was it sent? I think to be safe, if we just have the current copy resent to us, then everybody's got the copy that we're supposed to be looking at.
Great. I'll make sure that is there. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, cool. Okay. Jay, anything on homelessness?
Sure.
There's quite a bit going on with the homelessness activity. The Palm Springs Access Center opened, as you know, about a month ago and is up and running. It's still being assembled as we speak. We still have to add an office modular building to the facility for the staff to operate out of, but they were okay working virtually for a short time frame. So they are accommodating us in that regard. But this group, Martha's Village and Kitchen, is also the group that's operating the overnight shelter at the Methodist Church. And they have struck a deal to continue providing that service there for one more month till the end of October. But after that, it will probably end. So as you may know, Palm Springs does not have an overnight shelter. And Martha's Village is proposing that as part of their operation at the former boxing club, they would like to explore the possibility of adding a few pod homes or pallet homes, they go by different names, to that site to allow for individuals to stay overnight there. So there's that going on. And of course, we have the permanent supportive housing projects moving forward. There were 2 approvals this past meeting to finalize the West Hollywood project on Stevens and Palm Canyon. So now that document is approved, it's, we go into a pretty long process of executing the documents and having them apply for their funding and securing their funding with various types of support from the city. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you for that.
I think we have some questions.
I didn't see whose hand was up first, but we'll go with Commissioner Ramarang. Oh, Commissioner Vagnola.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention at the last 1 PS meeting in October, City Manager Clifton did report to the members that enforcement was being increased regarding homelessness, particularly around bus stops throughout the city. He's reported that city would also be increasing maintenance of bus stops and other public locations where homeless gather. Just for your information, that came out of the October 12th meeting, and that was from City Manager Clifton regarding homelessness in the city. Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any other hands.
Actually, have a,
Yes, Commissioner Andrade.
let me unmute here.
I think you thought you were muted, but you weren't muted, and now you are muted.
Okay,
There you go.
how's that? Okay, thank you. I'll get this one of these days. Can we back up to Commission Development Mediation Report? I don't know if I overlooked it or you didn't call on me or what it was, but
Yes, go ahead.
just quickly. I have not received my certificate of completion from our training. I have reached out to our contact at the County of Riverside to ask about that. I don't know if Commissioner Flood or Ramaran have received theirs. And I also don't know if let me just say that the next phase of the process of mediation would be to sit in with the small claims court process, because typically that's where the mediation comes is in the small claims situation. However, I believe that having completed our training, that we would be eligible to do some community mediation, which is what the Human Rights Commission would ask of us. So I just wanted to, I did ask both Commissioner Ramaran and Flood earlier today what the status was with them. I saw that my email got to them really late, so I apologize for that. But if you have, if you can chime in on this, either of you, I would appreciate.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it was last week, I did get an email from Olga Sanchez from Riverside County telling me that there will be one opening this Wednesday for a Zoom meeting to sort of just be orientation. So I emailed, so first come, first served, she said. So I thought I was doing real fast, and I sent it back to include me in. And she said, well, sorry, but someone else beat me to it. And so that's all I know about that. That she's also hoping that the small claims court resume soon.
Correct.
But I did get a certificate for the classroom. I got that about a month ago, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Commissioner Ramaran?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Andrade, for doing this. Yeah, I got mine too. It was in June, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. And thank you for that. And then Jay, I guess just a question for you. Is the city interested in the Human Rights Commission providing that service to the small claims court system, or are we just kind of focusing on community mediation with regard to the things that might come with before us?
I don't think the city would want to be involved with a small claims court just for various liability purposes, and having the city, and you as city representatives taking a position there. So yes, more so for community mediation. I think, that may come up again as we talk about our priority matrix, because I think that mediation came up a little bit in that, and I think what we called fostering communication between various parties in the city. So it may prove to be very helpful in that regard to use whatever techniques, skills, and practices you picked up in the training.
Okay, we had a little power outage, so I dialed in on another line. I think the next item, I don't have the agenda in front of me right now, but I think we were going into the discussion of our priority goals that we are suggesting to city manager. Realizing that the synopsis of thought and conversation was just sent out before this meeting. We can discuss freely thoughts and ideas if you have that copy in front of you on what I kind of assembled based off of our conversations, and two key points. One, which was gentrification, which really came back to working conditions, affordable housing, pay, living wage, and STRs. All of those items are linked together. And then the other, we had a number of items or core areas that we were talking about. One was being involved with the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, and guidelines for the city of Palm Springs and being able to, or being involved with the city manager on putting those in place. We also had identified big topic issue was ongoing conversations for homelessness. And another point was the ongoing education to raise awareness of issues in general that are facing the community. And then a greater focus on youth outreach. So those were some of the core areas, and knowing that we're being asked to submit 2 priority areas. The first one that I wrote down was work with the city manager to integrate and establish as needed DEI guidelines in operations and policy. Do we want to talk about priority 1 and then go on to priority 2? How would you all like to do it?
Chair, can you just, this is Commissioner Vignolo. Can you, I don't know what DEI guidelines are, so.
Oh, sure. So policies and guidelines, procedures all built around a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy for the city of Palm Springs. The door is open for us as the Human Rights Commission to work together with city manager and our human resources department to establish these written guidelines and policies. Okay. Other, discussion, comment on priority 1? And this was not that this is stated in stone. This was just assembled from what I took away as part of our conversation at our last meeting. So this is wide open for revision, editing to the statement, whatever the commission feels we would like to do.
Could I ask about the new group that was formed where we have the 2 seats on? I can't recall the name of it.
Yeah, the Equity Social Justice Committee.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So this is outside of their input and their work, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's I don't know what's on their agenda. I don't know if they even know what's on their agenda yet. But I think they're, could this be tied to that? Sure, I think it could be. Is it directly related to what their focus is going to be? I'm not sure it would be.
Okay, thank you.
But that's.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you could see the raised hands, but Commissioner Vignolo has a raised hand and so does Commissioner Ramaran.
Okay, Commissioner Vignolo.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand after I raised it to ask my DEI question. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Ramaran.
I was wondering if we could add because the DEI acronym has actually expanded to include A, which is accessibility or an access. So I was wondering if we could expand it as well.
I don't know why we wouldn't. Any objections to that? I can't see heads nodding up and down right now. So if
no objection, Mr. Chair.
Okay, excellent.
Recording in progress.
We will. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to. All right, I think I'm back. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so we were going to add, accessibility, already done. I think we lost inclusion. Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay. Any other comments on item 1? Moving over to rationale. And again, this is all for our input, so please do not feel that we cannot adjust this. So the rationale is that we must first ensure our house is in order before we can effectively fulfill our duties of maintaining contact with human relations agencies, other public agencies, and representatives of employers, labor unions, property owner associations, professional associations, national origin groups, community organizations concerned with interracial, interreligious, and intercultural understanding is as the rationale for this purpose. And measures of success, the big measure of success would be that there's a completed DEIA policy in place and integrated in city operations.
Mr. Chair, the only question I have is with regard of timing. Is that by the end of 2022?
Accomplish in to
So
address-
the measure of success is there a timeline attached to the measure of success?
we can add one. I don't, because we're being asked to identify, what you want to accomplish in 22.
Okay, so it's by the end of 2022.
Yeah,
correct?
by the end of 22.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that's, how do people feel? We feel okay with that?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, I have a comment on measure of success,
yes, go ahead.
particularly if you're trying to complete it before the end of 2022. My concern is if one measurement of our success is the integration of this newly developed or to be developed DEIA policy, is the integration of that policy completely in our control? And if not, then I'd be reluctant to include it as a measurement of our success if we can't control its integration into city operations.
Okay, that's an excellent observation. Why don't we change the wording to say a completed DEIA policy in place, and blank, 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 ready for city managers' integration into city operations.
Something like that I think would be better, assuming that's the process. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe
So
presentation to
if
the city.
or we can just end it right there, the completion of a DEIA policy, period. How's that?
Period. That's much better, Mr. Chair. By the way, it's really clearly explained in the priority that working with city manager. So if this is a process and we're working with city manager, there has to be the possibility of having it fully integrated, right? Because we've been working with city manager all along. So.
Okay. Now, I just caution a little bit. We already know from previous conversation that the door was open for DEI, and I have not had a conversation with city manager on accessibility. So I would just like to include a note that with city manager guidance, we're requesting the additional category of accessibility to this effort. Because that too is new to me also, Commissioner Ramaran, so I appreciate you bringing it forward. Yeah, okay. So we feel good about number 1.
Yes.
I see most heads are shaking up and down,
Yeah.
or moving
Yes.
up and down. That's good. Okay, let's move on to item 2. So item 2 was one, Commissioner Vignola, is your hand still up from before? It's a new hand. You just like waving at us.
Kidding.
All right, okay, so item 2 was the one that, as I thought about it, a lot of our comment and discussion previously focused around, as I said earlier, the issues of living wage, working conditions, affordable housing, gentrification, the STR industry in general, flight of Black and brown families, and homelessness. So, when we look at what that core, we want to summarize the core category. There was a lot of topics to issue, or a lot of topics for us to try to tackle, probably way more than is even feasible for us to look at for 12 or 11 months, actually. So we're looking at a pared down priority of living wage and impacts on affordable housing and how this is impacted by short-term rental industry. Is that what I wrote? We'll fix that. So we want living wage and impacts on affordable housing and how this is impacted by the STR industry. Thoughts on priority. We talked about working conditions, affordable housing, living wage, gentrification, STR industry, and homelessness. Is this a priority for us, or do we not want to address this as a priority for the commission? Or do we want to narrow it down?
Mr. Chair, I think this is a big priority. Definitely, I would add the homelessness to it.
Where do you see, how would you like to have it incorporated here? How about living wage, comma, affordable housing, comma, homelessness, short-term rental industry, and how this impacts the working class of our community, something along those lines. Commissioner Vignola?
Well, as a topic, which is the same as priority, as a topic for this group to address in 11 months, I'm a little concerned as to how we're going to achieve success unless we clearly have a very smart measurement in the third column.
Do you not think that's clear and smart?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by.
I'm just playing with you.
Demonstrated actions. I'm not sure.
We just need to.
Yeah.
And I think that's really how do we measure such a huge topic and something that that we can be involved from an educational standpoint, we can be involved from an awareness standpoint, we can assist the city council from information advocacy. So there's some ways that we can be involved. So that's what the thought was on the measure of success, is that there's some type of demonstrated action that the commission can show that it worked closely with the mayor and city council in joint endeavors, which are going to bring about some type of realized outcomes. We're not saying we're going to bring about, which will bring about, let's put in realized outcomes. So the thought here was just to say, you can measure the success if we do successfully work with city council in assisting them in their capacity on any one of these subjects, or they're interrelated. So I welcome you, your thought and idea on how can we structure that measure better.
I mean, are you looking for the Human Rights Commission to produce a report that provides, not only tells the mayor and city council how we have looked at these topics and we've concluded this is how they impact the working class of our community. And in addition, here are some recommended actions we would suggest mayor or city manager or city council you consider, which would then produce the following outcomes. I mean, I think that's maybe all we can produce that would then, in 11 months, we could put before them that says, hey, we took this priority, we looked at these topics, we addressed them, we've determined how we believe they impact the working class, and here are some suggested recommendations that, if enacted, might bring about these outcomes, and then end it at that. I mean, that's, think that's maybe it's got a lot of work, but I guess that's what you're hoping we produce in 11 months. Is that
any other discussion?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Andrade, go ahead.
I think kind of following up on Commissioner Vignolo's comment, that perhaps the best we can offer is in the form of a report and some research on the impact of living wage, housing costs, and STRs in our community. I think, that would be something that we could provide that would be helpful to them, I'm sure, in making decisions. And also, it's not just the working class, it's every class. I mean, when you break this down, you know that, I mean, the lack of housing, just accessible, the access to housing is incredible here. And I know it has a lot to do with STRs, but again, I think that we could easily put together a quality report for council that speaks to the impact of each of these things on the quality of life in our community.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lolo.
Yes, I was following exactly in the same train of thought. This starts to feel a little bit like a research report with some data, looking at the numbers. And if we're going to be measuring outcomes, we got to be able to look at numbers and perhaps set up some targets that can be looked at from a statistical data perspective. But I was definitely thinking in the same vein with a research report.
Commissioner Vignola.
Sorry, I still had my hand up again, but I did put in the chat. I love that term that Commissioner Andrade used when she said, maybe we include somewhere in here that, we're looking at the impact of these things, living wage, lack of living wage, I think is really what we're looking at. The lack of a living wage, affordable housing, homelessness, short-term rental industry on the quality of life, maybe of the many diverse communities in our city or something like that, so that we capture not just working class, but as many of the various communities that make up the city of Palm Springs,
Sure.
something like that. I'm typing it in the chat, so
Mhm.
thank you. I'm going to lower my hand this time.
Other thoughts? Commissioner Flood.
Yes, and relating to that, I want to say, I think we should say something like, well, living wage, affordable housing, homelessness, short-term rentals. Why do we want to target the industry? Really targeting the short-term rentals, and not all of them are industry related. When you have independent people, individuals renting, making short-term rentals. So the industry is like a broad nationwide type of thing. You got companies who are in the industry, and we should say how these and other issues or subjects impact the working class, et cetera.
Mhm. Yep, a good observation. Maybe it's instead of industry, short-term rental ordinance.
Yeah, something like
Dealing
that.
with the city, so short-term rental, City of Palm Springs short-term rental ordinance.
Yes, I think that might cover it. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Ramaran, you put up a different color hand now.
Yeah, so I could be seen.
I was seeing you.
No, I think
You can't hide on me this time.
yeah, I think the brown skin tone gets overlooked a lot for some reason. I think it gets hidden in the art behind me. I appreciate this conversation because I think this priority is, at best, like, I think we're trying to definitely iron out something that's very, very important. I think that the core of it is that if we think of it from, like, this is me personally, from a Human Rights Commission point of view, that we're talking about, addressing these things that are clearly, related, housing as well as homelessness, class. And I think this priority of class is actually very, very, very telling and very important. So what I would suggest, and I think that's why the discussion is talking about why are we talking specifically about STR, when in fact, our conversation is on a sort of, and maybe that's because it's specifically about looking at that industry or those folks who can actually afford or who have the ability to be part of the STR industry. But I think what we're talking about is really uplifting poor and and the homeless. That's one of the things that I'm looking at in terms of the core of what we're looking at here. It's people who can work, people who cannot work, people who don't have a home, people don't have the ability to, like, even rent out their houses. They don't have that ability. So I think we're tackling a couple things or three things maybe at the same time, and I'm worried that it may get lost, because I think what's at the core of this is we're trying to really say, hey, we're the Human Rights Commission, and we not only want to address homelessness, but we want to wholeheartedly, see how we can represent, the homeless class in Palm Springs. I mean, it's a very, very, it's at the core of what I'm trying to think about in terms of this, and I'm trying to figure out how this. I don't know why I feel uncomfortable with what's listed there, only because it's sort of like, okay, let's do our shopping list, but I don't want it to be a shopping list, and I want it to be this really strong statement. If we're going to prioritize it, and we were to say, hey, we're going to prioritize homelessness, it includes this real level of, like, the commission looking at class as a very, very important topic to keep at the fore. That's just my comment.
Yeah, excellent. And looking at, if we focused on homelessness, how would you measure success if that was a focus?
That's a great question, because I think it's about really, when you think about, hey, if we're going to talk about a certain class who isn't even at the table, I mean, this is what we're talking about. The measure of success is that the homeless are at this table discussing this. You know, we're all housed people here, I believe, as commissioners. We all have this level of privilege, but we don't have a liaison. I mean, we do address it in terms of our ad hoc committees or liaison committees. But I think we need to really prioritize that. How do we have the underclass, or the so-called underclass, or the overlooked and underrepresented classes in at the table? And, you know, that's what I'm thinking. Look, if we could get a student representative, we could have a representative that could really address these priorities that we're talking about. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
How do you see this being different than the already established, um, very deeply entrenched homelessness task force?
It's a good point, but I think that's where we as a commission put that at the fore of our thinking, like that we're always, you know, maybe I'm thinking on a very grand scale in terms of like conceptually, like how our mission statement, you know, again, like maybe reprioritizes itself as well. Maybe that's the way, you know, to do it in this case. I mean, we do have a task force, so we, you know, there are those who are working 24/7 on this already. But I think if we do this, and we have this level of, like, you know, we just say it all the time, you know, that's instead of it just being part of a shopping list. I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm. Well, keep the thought process going, because if we want to, if we're going to address an issue, we need to identify how is our work going to fit within the work of city council, the task force that's already established, and then how do we do something that is going to be of significance that will really bring about a positive solution to whatever we're tackling. So let's keep thinking about that. How can we do that? And it's a big, certainly it's a very, very big conversation. I'm just not sure how we can identify a particular piece that we could really contribute to.
Mr. Chair, how about if the report goes to the homeless task force for additional vetting and conversation, get their input and thoughts on that.
Okay.
And I would also add, you know, this group is speaking of, I think, broader issues. We're looking at short-term rentals, gentrification, and these topics really haven't come up at the homeless task force level. At that level, it's more about resources, who's doing what, and you know, what are each of those respective groups who participate in that meeting doing to assist with homelessness, as opposed to this broader level of you know, what factors are impacting housing values in Palm Springs, you know, making driving rent increases and making it a little more difficult for individuals who you know, have a more fixed income and can't sustain rapid rent increases. And that's what you're all looking at. It's sort of a economics analysis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add to that as well. Is that, if that's okay? And I think it's because I was very much following, you know, the sort of reports that were coming from around homelessness for the city. You know, when the city was having, you know, it prioritized in its agenda, for instance, at the city council meetings. And I think that was one of the things that was really bothering me personally as a commissioner, because I saw that even our own officials were using a slideshow that depicted the homeless community in a very negative way. So I'm looking at, it's at the core of what city government is, to really uplift those who don't have the resources. And, you know, we're talking about a task force that, yeah, that does look at resources, but we're looking at it from a human rights point of view. Like, if our own government can't even say, hey, you know, this slideshow is offensive, then we have an issue. You know, that's a very, very, like, at the core of our being as, you know, of citizens in the city. You know, like, what does it mean to have a task force that actually uses slides that are offensive? You know, like, we have to think of that kind of stuff. And I think that is at the core of what we're talking about. Like, how do we put it at the fore of our thinking that, you know, we care. And I think that's what I'm looking for. I think that becomes a very tangible thing, a measure of success, when we have, you know, having, you know, presentations even that uplift our homeless community versus, like, just, you know, denigrates them in a slideshow.
Mhm. No, I think you raise a lot of hopes and desires and wishes. And our challenge would be, how do we boil that down to identifiable, tangible actions that we can then say, this is how we're going to measure success of this core 6 or 8 thoughts that you just presented. How do we put those thoughts and ideas down into words on a paper that we then can really have a role in bringing about some type of outcome? That's a challenge. I don't
Mr. Chair,
have the answer.
it's a tough one, but the only thing that I wanted to add is that I think employability, being employed, should be part of the equation as well as a priority, because to the degree that people are employed, earning a living wage, right, and affording housing, should be part of the equation. So I don't know that component is kind of missing from the priority.
In individuals' employability. Okay, so you're not helping us, Commissioner. Well, we just made it larger. Our scope is larger.
So it feels like part of the equation. If you're not retired earning a sustainable income from retirement, you need to have a job. And if you don't have a job, you won't be able to earn a living wage, and you won't be able to afford housing. So I think that is something that is missing from this priority. And there should be data to demonstrate that it's all interwoven and it's interconnected.
Yeah. So maybe do you insert the word employability after homelessness?
So one of the issues that I'm facing on a daily basis, in working for the SBDC is obviously employability. A lot of people can't hire. They're not able to get new employees because they're just paying, like minimum wages. And that obviously is going to cause a lot of folks that not be able to make enough money to pay for affordable housing. And I think that's missing from this priority.
So, but isn't that two? I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing employability from an individual standpoint, and then employability from a business owner standpoint of being able to have a workforce that you can employ to run your business versus an individual having the skills and ability to be employable. Am I looking at employability too broadly in the way you're defining it?
No, I think we're looking at it the same way.
Yeah. Okay. So there's got to be, I don't know if employability is the right word when we're talking about both sides. Businesses employing individuals and individuals having the skill and ability to be married to that job, to connect them.
Mm-hmm. The first two parts of the priority, living wage and affordable housing, are directly connected to being employed for those that are not earning, a living retirement.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on maybe it's not employability, but maybe it's using that term, being employed.
Being employed.
You know, this is so broad.
Yes.
And we've had some good, good conversation on it. I'll further the measure of success. The thought process I was using, we can only do and bring about some success and truly be successful, I think, is if we're working toward what the city council has set as a priority. I think if we're not working towards something that's city council's priority, it's going to be not, we're going to be busy for a year, but then what action are we going to get from that work? But if we are focusing our energies on what city council's priority may be, then we are setting ourselves up to be in a position to be more useful, provide more resources to city council for action that they are going to be addressing. So that's where I was, loosely trying to say, that we're committed to work with city council on in joint endeavors, meaning focusing on goals and objectives that city council is setting for 22 and 23. So somehow we've got to be as effective as we can be, I think, find the way that we can fit within their goal and priority to really provide a service. Not only, or when we provide a service, I'm looking at it that we're providing a service for our community, the residents, the employees that work in this community, and that by providing a service to them, we're providing a service to city council because we're giving them information and feedback and measurements and statistics or whatever it might be on the issue that they're tackling. Does that make sense? And then how do, because these are all issues that I think we identified last time that we felt city council will be tackling. Issues of the affordable housing. We know homelessness is going to continue to be a big issue. We discussed short-term rentals as being an issue. So I think we were looking at a lot of issues that if we had a crystal ball, we would be saying city council will be addressing these things. So how do we take these half a dozen core issues and put together an objective in a way that we would be supporting city council? As we contemplate that, I see Jay, we can have someone share their thoughts, can't we, from the community?
Oh, yes, this is it'd be a public comment on the item being discussed. So we're entertaining public comments, absolutely.
Okay, so I see Larry, it says West Coast with a capital C. So it's Larry West Coast. In the chat, you say that you're a member of the Community Partnership on Homelessness. And do you want to share your thoughts on where the commission focus could be on setting priorities for 22? And how could we set a priority that can really be beneficial? Oh, you're muted if you're trying to talk, Larry. All right, well, maybe Larry can't hear me. Commissioner Vignola, I see your hand up again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I guess I'm trying to, I lost my train of thought. I'm trying to, are we trying to align our priorities with the ones that the mayor and city council have? And then perhaps if so, then our measurement of success is to provide them with the information, as you call it, I call it analysis of how these topics negatively impact human relations in our community, which I think is the core of our mission statement, to improve human relations. So if we look at these topics and how they negatively impact human relations in the city, then that information could be used by the city manager and city council to improve human relations by coming up with concrete policies that raise human relations, not degrade them.
Yeah. No, I think that certainly is a good way that we can state measure of success.
I'm trying to tie our priorities to our mission statement. And I keep seeing this, our mission is improving human relations. And I think we all agree that human relations right now in our city are not very good. So possibly because of all these topics we've identified, and maybe what our contribution is to attack these topics from that human relations perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
This whole, to complicate things further, this whole discussion makes me think about the grassroots perspective of a human rights organization. Are we assuming that the entire homeless population wants traditional housing? That they want the services that we're suggesting for them? And where would we be in terms of advocating for somebody's legal right to not be housed, to be on the street? I don't know. It's just a question, because I just returned from a trip to Portland where, oh my gosh, the whole landscape is nothing but homeless people in the city, in the suburbs, on the freeway sides, the tents, the trash, the abandoned property, things like that. And they're calling it a social crisis, and it's frightening for them and the impact on their infrastructure and their population. But, as a visitor, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this could be us, in a matter of time. I don't know. But yet at the same time, not everybody wants what we ourselves decide. And that's not a class thing. It's just a matter of fact. Not everyone wants what we believe to be a good life, or do you know what I'm saying? And I don't know where we fall with respect to advocating for those folks as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for people listening, we don't want anyone to think that that our priority or our discussion is setting a standard that we would assume would be acceptable by all people. I think we're just saying we want to address an issue, the topic, and the topic of homelessness includes everything Commissioner Andrade just said, and complete understanding that some people will want access to services and support, and other people will choose not to, and they have a right. On both sides, there's rights of individuals involved there. So if we're addressing an issue, we want to be looking at all sides of it, and not take we're not giving an opinion that it has to be this way. I think that was, generally a consensus from Commission we're tackling an overall topic. which needs to move forward with an understanding, at the core of what Commissioner Andrade just said. And we're not defining, thank you, Larry, we're not defining where somebody lives in homelessness. We're just addressing a subject. So it's very broad, it's very big. And so we're not saying that, everybody, just because someone who is in the park is the only type of homeless person that is there, someone who's living in their car, or someone that doesn't have a place to stay that's going couch surfing from night to night. It's a very big subject. We don't want to exclude if we're going to tackle a subject. Commissioner Vignal, I think if you could put the words that you had a little structure there on providing city council analysis, you worded it in a good way. I think that feeds what our purpose is in why the commission is the ordinance is even in place, that we have a commission, is that we're here to support the city council. So the way you said it shows that we're supporting city council by providing this analysis, and it's of topics that we've identified, and maybe we could put a little addendum on the priority. That it is these topics that we've identified to be reviewed and perhaps modified based on City Council's 2022 priorities. So Commissioner Vignola, do you want to restate what your measure of success thought was? And Jay, if we can try to put it down.
I was going to try to type it in the chat. If that's helpful.
Yeah, that works. Or Jay, will that be helpful if it's types it in the chat? Why don't you verbalize it at the same time?
Yeah, verbalize at the same time. Either way, Commissioner Vignolo.
No, I don't actually remember what I said.
Anybody, Commissioner Loyola?
Just as a reminder that this has been recorded, so whatever he said, it's on tape.
Thank you.
Anybody want to remind Commissioner Vignola what he was saying?
I think it's so. Our measurement of success might be to provide the I liked your word, analysis of how these topics have impacted, I was going to say, the diversity of our communities, the state of human relations in our city, and then I got stuck. This is hard.
Commissioner Vignolo, it was about you mentioned something about our mission, right? And it was about bringing communities together. It was about relationships.
Right. I mean, our core mission says to improve human relations. And I think these topics, if we do the analysis, we're going to conclude that this, they have degraded our not only diversity in our city, but human relations in our city. And until we address and tackle these issues with concrete actions to build up human relations, I mean, that's, I think, what our mission is to help identify the problem, particularly how it's negatively impacted human relations in our city, and provide the city council with the information, analysis, and recommendations on how changes in policy going forward would improve, would elevate our communities, would enhance human relations in our communities.
All right, let's put a period on it right now. So let's catch up. So it's to provide city council the analysis and resources, or analysis and recommendation of how these topics, and I feel that if we say degraded, we're already slanting the topic of our conversation. How these topics impact the diversity of our community and the state of human relations in our city. Now, Commissioner Andrade, does this impact the diversity of our community? You use different words.
Yeah,
She said something about quality of life.
I like the quality of life issue because I think it is across the board for every citizen of this community. I think I like the quality of life.
How these topics impact the quality of life of our diverse community?
That's fine. That's fine.
Can we say diminish instead of impact, or do you think that's still?
So then we're still
strong.
Oh, I think that's too judgmental. Yeah.
Yeah, we're yeah.
Yeah, I think that we are going to provide them with information and data, if you will, that they can use to see how our community is impacted.
Okay, now Commissioner Vignola, I gave you a period when you were sharing your thoughts.
That's fine.
Did you have more there?
To read. By pluralize recommendation.
Recommendations.
Well, I'd switch the order. So it's to provide City Council the analysis of how these topics have impacted the quality of life of our diverse community and human relations in our city, and then comma, and recommendations on, I don't know, policy changes that they could consider.
You don't know what the recommendations would be. So I would.
No, but I think that's part of our measurement, is that we provide them with some recommendations.
But recommendations, period. But I'm not sure it's not in our wheelhouse. Well, if we know we're going to set out for policy, then that's a very specific topic that we need to address. Versus giving City Council background and information to let them make better decisions on policy.
Well, how about if we provide them with a framework for the development, subsequent development of policies to address these topics? So we're not giving them the recommendations, we're just giving them a framework. I'm trying to, otherwise I'm afraid they'll just take the information and then what? Trying to do how can we best help them going forward by giving just information? Or are we better off giving them information and kind of next steps, City Council, so you can take it and run with it?
I would put a period after policy, and we're not, we're presupposing we're going to recommend changes versus maybe it's something new. And we're not recommending a change. So maybe a period there. And to your thought, just a minute ago, I think that's where the recommendation is over on the priority, that we do put a footnote that these priority issues are pending city council's approved priority list for 2022. Because if we're not working toward their priority, then we're not going to see, it's highly unlikely that we're going to see effective policy change. But if we're working toward their priority, we can really provide a service to them that will bring about potential policy impact, or have potential policy impacts. Okay. So we've shared an awful lot, and we've got some good notes here. How do we feel about, let's go back to the priority. How do we feel about the priority? I noticed we don't have the word for employability that we talked about. So it's individual and workforce employability. Do we feel that we want to have that added in somewhere? And is employability the right word that is going to encompass? There you go. Okay. All right. How does that feel? Oh, we lost Commissioner Loyola. Okay, well, that was Commissioner Loyola had pointed that out. So how do we feel about the everything else? Have we got the topics that we want, Commissioner Ramaran? Are we honing in enough on those that don't have access, on those who don't have the living wage? Well, living wage addresses everybody, right? That topic. Affordable housing, doesn't that address all individuals, regardless of their income status? Employability is a broad term for everybody.
Mr. Chair, just a concept to be aware of, that quality affordable housing may be helpful as a descriptor, because housing can be affordable if it's overcrowded. And that's one of the problems we see, is multiple families crowding into garages and such just because of affordable housing. And so with a few incomes, it's affordable, but may not be quality.
Yeah, good. I love that. Everybody else okay with that? Yeah, so let's add quality there, Jay. Commissioner Ramaran, you see anything that needs to be massaged here?
I see a lot that needs massaging, but
I know, but
this is a really difficult one, to be very frank, and I appreciate this, because I think where the talk about living wage versus employability, we're really or workforce employability, we're getting into some really nitty gritty of like, hey, just like quality affordable housing is wording that I think is more sensitive to what we're talking about. But I'm thinking that there's wording that could actually incorporate the discussion about living wage is about the discussion was very much brought up, I believe, when Commissioner Shepard talked about, for instance, like the fight for 15. I think that there's a real level of like looking at what is a living wage in the city of Palm Springs. What does it even mean? A living wage in this priority. But I think the employability that Commissioner Loyola was bringing up is it actually talks about something else. There's again that talks about a quality of employees, or a quality of a class of employees. So I'm trying to reconcile that. But I think we're getting somewhere. But I think this is a very this list that includes short-term rental. All of a sudden, it almost kind of it's almost kind of a weird. It's kind of a weird list, if to be honest. I'm just struggling. So I hope we could massage it more.
So short-term rentals, I believe we addressed the whole reason why that is impacting housing. It's impacting affordability. It's impacting access, the rental market. So the conversation of short-term rentals has had a tremendous impact on the community and people's ability to get housing. So that directly goes to many of the topics you've been raising tonight.
I need to go. Sorry. Oops.
So, and maybe if we feel that short-term rental, this complex issue of short-term rentals is included in a conversation of quality, affordable housing, then maybe short-term rental specific addressing that comes out. Because wouldn't short-term, the impact of short-term rentals on the community be impacting the quality of affordable housing available in the community? Or no?
It really could be anything that drives up the cost of housing.
Yeah.
And if,
So let's, why don't we cross off short-term rental industry, and we will assume that the short-term rental situation and conversation will fall under the broad conversation of quality, affordable housing. Does that feel better, Commissioner Ramaran, just from a scope standpoint?
I believe so. If it's incorporating that, I think one of the things that you brought up in the list earlier is that our conversation also included a broader thing of gentrification. So that again, gentrification could be about the movement of certain classes within a city, you know, a municipal reality. Like in my neighborhood, if you think of like a more wealthy class that moves into a neighborhood, for instance. So how do we, how do we talk about that without having to say, well, it's just about short-term rentals? You know, it's not. So I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Vagnola, I'm sorry, I see your hand.
Oh, that's okay. I guess I was doing it in the chat. Sorry. I just wanted to say, I think the topics as they're written under priority are fine. I think I appreciate Commissioner Ramaran. Am I saying that right? Comments, I think for the purposes of producing this priority matrix, I think you've captured what new and emerging topics this group will address in 2022. I think the more difficult conversation where we delve into the complexities of those topics will come down the road. So I just wanted to throw that in because I unfortunately have to leave the meeting. But I think you captured it sufficiently for the purposes of producing and submitting your priority matrix. Thanks.
Our priority matrix.
Oh, our.
So
Human
under,
Rights Commission's priority.
so can we have just, is there a nod of head that we've got consensus on the priority number 2, the way it's currently worded? I'm trying to look at everybody. Commissioner Loyola's coming back in. Commissioner Andrade, I see a nod. Yes, nods, nods, nods. Okay, then how do we feel on the measure of success? Do we have that the way that we all feel comfortable with right now? Can you all read it? It's got really small for me. Oh, because I made the screen smaller. Sorry. To provide City Council the analysis of how these topics impact the quality of life of our diverse community and the state of human relations in our city. I think we may need to grammatically redo this, but are the points there that we want to have? Recommendations, analysis, provide that to City Council, and the impacts of quality of life on our diverse community. Do we have consensus that we've got the right elements? It may need, we'll work on the sentence structure, but I think the elements are there. Yeah, I see yes, okay. So Commissioner Loyola, we can't see you or hear you yet.
I had to log in with my phone. My electricity went out.
Yeah, we're having a fun night here in town, aren't we?
Yes, sorry, my apologies.
Okay, so you feel good about the content of the measure of success. We've identified, we're going to work on the sentence structure, but all the elements are all there.
Yes,
Okay, so if we we've gone through number one, we've gone through number two. This is the meat of what we've been asked to provide. Item two is an awful big ask. Item one on itself is an awful big ask, or due. So they're two very, very big priorities. So we may, come back and give it a little further analysis on our own side and decide, think that we need to pare it down some. But do we feel good sending this to city manager before the due date, which I think is the 15th? Okay, I got a thumbs up. We got a couple, and yes on the head nod, Commissioner Andrade. We got a head nod, we got a thumbs up, Commissioner Clary. Okay, great. So, Jay, you and I can finalize this and fill in the rest of the blanks. I think it was just like housekeeping stuff. And then we'll be able to are those critical factors for success? Organizational changes needed. Organizations needed to identify priorities. We're making the assumption that we're going to work within the structure that's currently existing for the Human Rights Commission as we present these priorities. We're not asking for additional support from city manager. Process improvements. Any improvements that you would suggest that would contribute to the successful implementation that you would suggest contribute to a successful implementation? Well, I think the examples they set are the processes that we need to have in place. A lot of our conversation has been about being linked with city council priorities. And I say another process improvement, give Jay Employee of the Year award. Thank you, Jay, for keeping us floating here.
I have a question, Chair DeHart, if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
In the last city council meeting, there was discussion, and it was actually a good follow up to our joint meeting with the city council on the Section 14 apology, the removal of the statue, as well as reparations. In terms of the conversation about reparations, for instance, actually, as you know, I think everyone knows, knows the public conversation actually has actually been focusing in on that. This would actually be something of a critical factor, right, in terms of, or an impact on a budget, for instance, if we were to look at the role of a city looking at reparations for the city, the families that were forced out of Section 14 down the line. Is that correct?
Well, I think city council has already, they've already asked city manager for recommendation and budget assessment. So that work is already underway. And the mayor brought out a figure that others felt may be good, may not be enough. And that's why they've got this city manager working on coming back to city council very soon, I think, with an initial report, as an assessment, and then with a plan on what we would see happening over the next 6+ months on this process of identifying or tackling the conversation of reparations. So I think, I'm not sure we can add to that right now unless we want to say we want a request to be involved with city manager or staff to be involved in that work, because it's already identified and council's already moved on it. So do we want to, are we asking to, it's not one of our priority goals, Commissioner.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting you add that. I was just wondering how that works, but you definitely outlined it. We don't even have to really address it here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we any contribution to ideas here? I'm not sure. Other than, encourage the communication with council on their goals and priorities for 2022. We must be eating into dinner time hour. We're all, everybody. Well, this was, we needed to get this done, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to go through it. It makes it a little more challenging to work on it this way, but I think the good part is we were all able to hear thoughts and how folks were thinking on different components of this. So that's helpful. Okay, Jay, I think we've got what we need here. So I think we're good on the matrix. Commissioner Amaran, I see your hand up.
Forgot to lower it. Sorry about that.
Okay. We don't need any action on this, Jay, do we? It's just consensus that this is what the commission wants to send forward?
Consensus would be good to say this is the work of the commission.
Okay, so do we have consensus that we would like to forward these priorities and measures of success onto city manager as requested by the city manager? Looking for consensus. We got thumbs up. We got a head nod. Yes, thumbs up. Commissioner Amaran?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. We got consensus. Thank you all. Whew. Let's see. How are we on the agenda? We are, whoops. Oh, good. Any commissioner comments or newsworthy items? Let's take item E and item F.
Commissioner, if I may, I neglected to let you all know that Commissioner Robles did indicate she would not be present at tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
And one more point quickly is that the role of liaisons, I think we have it just about ironed out, but I want to add that liaisons are not supposed to meet. They are considered experts in their particular area. They may inform the rest of the commission on matters, but if they begin meeting, that would also require some kind of a public notice on that. So just to let you all know that it's one more complication on our subcommittee structure So if necessary, we can consider maybe having some of those also be a committee.
But I think in all our cases, the liaisons really are attending certain community meetings and
Correct.
reporting back.
Correct.
So-
And in many cases, it's one person, so.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner updates, topical newsworthy items, anything we would like to share? All right. Agenda items for the next meeting, which is our November meeting. We did identify item, the Clean Indoor Air Health Protection Draft Ordinance is back on the agenda for discussion after everybody has the opportunity to review that from a human rights lens. So please bring thoughts and comment on that for our next meeting. Any other items we need to place on the agenda for November? Commissioner Ramaran.
We have we'll have the clean air, of course, on the next one as well as an update. Correct.
The who?
The clean air ordinance, indoor air, that'll be on the agenda for the next.
Yeah. So yes, so the Clean Indoor Air and Health Protection Draft Ordinance. That's on the agenda for our comment. So it's not on the agenda just that we're going to look at it then. We're going to make comment. Commissioners are being asked to make comment on it.
Great.
Okay.
I did have one commissioner comment, if that's okay. I didn't raise my hand fast enough, if that's okay. It'll be quick. I wanted to, is there any way that I could share a screen with an image? It's in regards to Filipino American History Month, as well as Indigenous Peoples Month. I wanted to share this image from a dear colleague, and she's been working on a project looking at the lives of Ibay, Falayay, Basilia, Malakita, and Dadao. They were the Aita, Moro, and Mangyan people who never returned to the Philippines after traveling to St. Louis for the 1904 World's Fair. Many indigenous peoples were put on display at the exposition of that World's Fair in 1904. But I wanted to pay homage to those families and those people who passed on then, and we wanted to honor them as our ancestors and speak aloud their names. The Ibay, Falayay, Basilia, Malakido, and Dadao. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, with no further agenda items to be added, any announcements before we close? Commissioner Ramaran, is your hand new or not? Okay, all right. We are at item 11. Again, thank you all for your participation and comment on this matrix work that we had tonight. It is 7:21. The commission will adjourn to an adjourned regular meeting Monday, November 8th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. Jay?
That's correct.
Yeah, 2021. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you next month.